Hello everyone, Rob here. Welcome to another episode of Osborne Pro TV. Today I'm going to be showing you how to harden or better secure your Light HttpD server. So at home I have a bunch of Raspberry Pis running a bunch of different services, and one of them is a PiHole. If you're not familiar, a PiHole is basically a DNS sinkhole. It used to be able to be used to block ads. It can still do that to some degree. However, mostly it's better for privacy and such now. If you want to block data collection from certain sites or whatever. So currently the PiHole, it is on a Light HttpD web server, but it's not the latest version, which is okay. There's not any severe vulnerabilities with this one, and I'm just going to be covering some of the same protections I talked about in the Apache video, only how to apply them onto a Light HttpD server. And yeah, so we'll jump right into it here. Although this is on a PiHole, I'm going to be covering what a lot of these settings are, so you can apply them to whatever situation you might have. So if we take a look at our HttpD.conf folder, the first thing to notice at the top is they give us a nice note up here saying any changes you make in this folder are not going to last on an update. They're going to get erased. So if you want to make changes, edit the etc light httpd external.conf folder. So since that's the case, I'm just going to cover a couple things in here that may be important to your security. First thing to take note of is this is where we load our server modules, which is right here. And you can see we're loading mode OpenSSL, or module set environment, rewrite, access log, which is how to log files in the access log. Same thing with auth. One thing to notice with that is if you do systemctl status light httpd, every so often you're going to have basically alarms or warning messages that might show up here saying, hey, this module is now retired and we don't use this one anymore. So if you ever need to make certain edits, that might be where you need to update that module. Another thing with these modules you'll notice too is we have here, we'll do it this way, we have conf-enabled. Oh, that didn't explain it well. So we have conf-enabled and conf-available, which is similar to Apache. And if we look inside our conf-enabled directory, we can see that these are symbolic links. One of those symbolic links I've added that was not added automatically was the Evasive one, and that helps protect against DOS attacks. So if you would like to enable that, what we would do is create a symbolic link using ln-sf, and then we would do etc light httpd, and I'm going to have this command in the description if you need to copy and paste it, 10-conf-available for 10-evasive, and then we want to send that to the file that does not exist yet, which is conf-enabled, and I'm thinking, oh, confy, that's why it's not auto-completing, enabled, and then 10-evasive, and that would be how we create our symbolic link. Well, okay, conf-enabled, there we go. So I already had it, but I added it just for your benefit. Yeah, so that is a second way to add those modules, and to demonstrate that, if I were to just cat that file for conf-available 10-evasive, we can see all it's doing is executing that same command in a smaller content, so it's just that module. But since all our modules are loaded in that light httpd.conf file, this is another way of adding those modules and not worrying about the PiHole new configuration coming out and erasing or removing that instance that you're adding. So back to the task at hand here, those are our modules. Another thing I wanted to bring up is they have our index file names and URL access deny. So the index file names are basically the files that should be searched for if the directory is requested, which means your index.php file, which is defined here, index.html, and the other one there. So those are the files that are going to be returned if the directory info is requested from the GET request or whatever. Then we have our URL access deny, and this returns a 403 status for any URIs that end with .ini or .yml, any markdown files, or any possible backup files. And this is to prevent version info, for one, from being disclosed in a file, and it also prevents possible credentials that might be stored in the YML or INI file. And so that is that part of it. They also have, the PiHole developers have also added the Honor Cipher suite order, which is great. That ensures that our strongest ciphers get used first. And they also give us a nice short cipher list of ciphers that should be available in pretty much any client nowadays. And these are all considered secure. I also should mention too that the PiHole developers did a great job of securing the web server. There's just a few things that we're enabling on our own that have to deal with the use of SSL, which they do not enable by default. You have to kind of set that up on your own. And we do that in our external.conf file. The other thing towards the bottom here, which we're going to test out in a little bit, is our headers. So I'm not going to cover those. Those are going to be in the external.conf file. They include that file with this I guess configuration item here for include shell, and that ensures that our external.conf gets used. They also have another one added there for IPv6 to IPv4 fallback, and they also have our conf-enabled directory being loaded in as well. The other thing I should mention here is they have URL access deny. Again, this is for basically the prevention of disclosing any files that begin with a dot here. So .git or .gitignore files won't be disclosed. This value here, with just the two quotation marks with nothing in it, means apply to everything. And then, yeah, so that's that part of it. Now we're going to go to where our configuration is, which is the external.conf file. And you can see at the top, I believe I covered the Evasive module already, but we're about to again here to get more in depth on it. So first we loaded our mod Evasive file, and we do that with a symbolic link. So that, I'll have this command in the description. So by doing this, we enable the Evasive configuration file. Then what we would need to do, external.conf, is go into our external.conf file, and then we would define our Evasive module settings. So the first one we have here is evasive.max connections per IP. I have that set to 2. That might be even a little low. You could probably go 3 or 5 or 10 or whatever, and we'll show you that protection in a second here. We have evasive.silent, which is set to disabled, and the reason for that is that way I will get log messages in we'll do this tail var log light HTTPD in our error.log, and we'll see mod evasive log messages, so we know when that gets used. And we also have, I have evasive location here defined. So to show you what that is, if I comment that out, I'm going to run a fuzz attack here, and this is going to return 403 and 200. Oops, sorry, I got to restart the service after changing my settings. Oop. Oh, because I also need to be on the actual server, don't I? So right now I'm restarting the light HttpD service that it runs on. Now if I run a fuzz attack, we can see I return 403 and 200 messages. And if I can also check my file again, tail var log light HttpD error var log because I'm not on that server again. Sorry about that, guys. Tail var log light HttpD and error log, and we can see we have connections turned away, and that's the date and time right now. So if you're not familiar with military time, that's 7:13, which is 7:13 here. All right, so with those 403 messages, that gives us the attacker a forbidden message. I prefer to actually set that other option just because it makes things not as clear, which is where we have evasive location set. And what that's going to do is, rather than return a 403, is it returns a 302 message, which has to do with forwarding, so that they might think the site goes somewhere. So restart, and basically it requires a lot more enumeration and makes fuzzing for websites almost basically not worthwhile in doing, because you're not discovering any information when all your information is the same. And this is an example of the PiHole here. And one thing to take a look at is if we go, every response is a 200 response. So we can see whatever we put in, it's going to go to this website. So now when I perform our fuzz again, we're going to have that 200 response on everything and 302 responses, which say that there's a redirect. So basically all this info becomes useless, and you have to either use a tool like Burp Suite to find where URIs are, or manually check them yourselves. So that's the benefit of that. Back into our external.conf file. Now that we have our evasive protections going on, I'm going to turn them off just in case I get blocked with something we're going to do here in a second. And let's restart the service again, and then we'll do this over. Okay. Next thing here to look at is we have our HSTS headers, and this is again a protection against man-in-the-middle attacks. We have our preload option set. So if somebody goes to an HTTP site, the HST header gets added on first, and then it redirects to the HTTPS encrypted site, and our max age countdown timer begins. I have a Let's Encrypt certificate applied to this, so I have a 90-day mark for my max age. You can set this to a max of 2 years. However, since my cert is only good for 90 days, I just set a 90-day timer. Beneath that, we have our, there we go. So we have our server-side cross-site scripting protection. The one simply turns it on. We set the mode to block. PiHole adds this by default, which is the PiHole web interface is working. And then we have our X-frame options, which the PiHole does as well, and they set that to deny. That is great because it prevents clickjacking attacks on both the server and the client side. In the Apache video you saw, I would have set this to same origin, and what same origin does is only allows from the same origin, which is the server side. So an attacker would have to successfully compromise the server in order to create clickjacking attacks. So if they could do that, they could, using that deny option could be changed if they compromise the server, so it's not as bad to have same origin or deny. They're both providing about the same level of protection. And yeah, so on to our next thing there. Those are our main headers, and just to show what those are, let's cover what they are here. So we'll open up our inspect element, and we have that up high. I'm going to pull this over. Let's go to network, restart this. And now back to the top so we can get a good page. And let's see. So in our headers, you can see our cross-site scripting is turned on. You can see our HSTS is added as well, and our X-frame options are set to deny. We can also see, I mentioned in the Apache video how we could actually hide this version info. I have not found any way to do that for the Light HTTPD server. I'm not sure that's an option that's available. However, if you're able to correct me or show us how to do that, please do so in the comments. It would be great to know and spread that on. However, this one, since I've logged into the site, also actually has a PHP session cookie. So if we go to our cookies, we can see that's the cookie there. I think the best way to display this is going to be with a curl command. So let's do that here. So if I do curl-i for that website from my Raspberry Pi, osbornepro.com/admin, and then what am I doing? I probably want to change my header so it doesn't block me, and I'll show you what's blocking me, what would be blocking me on that in a second. And we can see that our secure cookie flag is set, as well as HttpOnly, and those protect this PHP session ID. The reason we want to protect that is somebody could use this session ID to authenticate without knowing my password and hijack my session. All kinds of bad things can come from it. So the way I was able to set that, again, PiHole doesn't offer HTTPS by default. You have to put your own configuration in to do this, so they don't have the secure cookie set. Now I set that by modifying a php.ini file, and I did that in etc php. This is for version 7.3, and then CGI is one of the files we're going to do. There's also CLI. So this is the file we want to modify. Then you can see here, we'll go to the front of the line and visualize it. Our session cookie, I turned it on. This is commented out by default and set to off. So we want to turn that on. We also want to set our use only cookie and turn that on as well. And yeah, so that's basically all you had to do for that. Same thing for CLI/php-ini. We're going to do those exact same things. We turn our session secure cookie on and we enable use only cookies. And then restart your service, and that information all gets applied. So since we've got that down, back to our external.conf file here, if we go down a little bit further, we get into our SSL settings. And also, if I haven't mentioned it, I might have already, but I'm going to have a link to this configuration file in the description of this video, so you can copy and paste it and use basically whatever works for you and save you some typing. So here is our SSL configuration. Notice down below we have stapling. Now stapling is not enabled with the current version that PiHole is using to host their service on with Lighttpd. You need version 1.4.56, and we're currently using 1.4.53, which unfortunately does not use OCSP Stapling yet. However, in the event that they update this in the future, I included the commands on here. So this OpenSSL command generates your OCSP response file, and then ssl.stapling-file is where we would set that file that we created with the above command. So then you can simply uncomment these, and you're going to have OCSP stapling working on your PiHole server. Now up here, we'll just work our way up. We have ssl.disable-client renegotiation. I've enabled that so that clients don't have the ability to renegotiate. They should have more options available on them than the server does. So if the server wants something, the client should be able to appease it and work with whatever is being used. The other thing here to mention is our Diffie Hellman config. That would be a copy button. So I have our DH file and the elliptic curve. The way to work with these that's best, I would say, is with our Diffie Hellman file. There's a command that I use to generate that file, and that is here, and that's OpenSSL dhparam-out, and we want to say basically define the file to save our key to, and then we define the key size, which is a 4096-bit key, which is considered extremely strong. 2048-bit is fine too. This is a little time consuming to complete, so you might want to use a smaller key just to get it done faster. Whatever floats your boat, both are fine. The next option down here is I selected a 521 security elliptic curve basically, and this is the command that you can use to view a list of your other options. So yeah, that's that part of it. The next thing to mention is our SSL version 2 and version 3. With this version of Lighttpd server, we have to disable them using these options. However, in version 1.4.29 and above, those options are no longer going to be available because I think they're just disabled by default. However, if you like, you can add onto your this configuration part right here and just include a negative SSL version 2 and negative SSL version 3 if appropriate. And so that is that part of it. And then of course we define our certificates and turn the SSL engine on. And with these protocols here, we can ensure that we're using a strong protocol with TLS version 1.1 or 1.0 with the following command. So OpenSSL, we'll clear the screen out, sclient-connect legion.osbornepro.com, and we want to TLS ls1. and we can see that was denied. I can try version 1.1. That's not going to work either. But if we use 1.2, it will work. Also notice we can also see or verify if I use the status command as well, or the status switch, that there's no OCSP stapling going on. So there's no response sent because we're not able to turn it on yet. Alright, so that's part of it. Now the other thing I want to mention in my external.conf file is at the top here, you'll see I have this include value, which includes rejections. So this rejections.configuration file is another one I'm going to have available in the description. And this is basically what we're using to block certain user agents and unwanted referrers, and you can also use it to block remote IPs. So just to show you, we can demonstrate that works with curl again. We only need to view our headers in these cases. So we're going to go to HTTPS legion.osbornepro.com/admin, and this is a curl header, so I should get a 403 forbidden when I make this request, and you can see that's the case. If I change that header, so it says tobor or some other random value, it will be a 200 value. Now the other thing I mentioned in there that we're blocking is referrer, so we can change the referrer, or wow, our header value of referrer. There we go. And if I change that to something I have blocked in there like blowfish and send the request, I get a 403 forbidden. And if I change that to something else, we get a 200 okay. So that's how we can test to make sure those rules are working. And I believe I've covered everything I wanted to in the video. I'm just going to double check my notes. Evasive, clickjacking, excellent. Yes, so that's all I wanted to cover. If you have anything to add, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm happy to always obtain new information. And if you can, please subscribe or like the video. This helps me out significantly, where I can put more time into the videos and answering your questions. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope to see you next time.